Can the legendary Saints linebacker Demario Davis, surefire Hall of Famer in my book, mold a group of young, talented linebackers into a dominant group in 2024? Not only do I believe he can, I'm betting you will. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So we're going to start off with Demario Davis, obviously. Um, man's 13-year veteran of the NFL as a linebacker. Kind of an interesting path to get to the Saints because he's drafted by the Jets in 2012. Stayed there till 2015. The Browns signed him as a free agent in 2016. 2017, they traded him back to the Jets, where he finished up. Was a free agent in 2018 with all intentions of going back to the Jets. But seemingly we swooped in and made a call on, and he was universally considered, if not the best linebacker available, one of the best in free agency that year. We swooped in, grabbed him in 2018. And like I said, in my book, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and hopefully he's going to finish it right here in New Orleans. Um, Only he knows how many more years, I think, before that happens. So could still be here a while. Um, Now I'm going to say, before we talk a little bit about him, I'm dead serious about the Hall of Fame thing. And I'm dead serious about what I'm about ready to say. They had better not make him wait a decade and a half like they did to Zach Thomas to get in. That was a travesty. And I think as football fans, we should not stand for something like that happening again to an all. Really, he's one of the all-time great linebackers. So is Zach Thomas. But kind of when he started his career, everybody, shouldn't say everybody, most teams and coaches knew he was a good football player. He was a good linebacker. But I think he just, between the Jets, the Browns, and the Jets, and those back and forth stints he had there, he just kind of seemed to get caught up in sometimes a numbers game, scheme changes, coaching changes. He wasn't the new coach's guy, or the new coach was coming in. We're switching schemes, and we don't think he fits, so we need to move on. There was a little bit of that in there. I think that the first Jets run was mostly the stability of Todd Bowles being the head coach there, and the de facto defensive coordinator. Kind of stability in Bowles believed in him, but once that all started changing, till he showed up in New Orleans, DA, a pretty good defensive coordinator, and now the head coach, de facto defensive coordinator, has found himself in a great position where he wasn't going through all that. He was on the field 100% of the time, doing what he does best, and that's run around and just make plays, lead the defense, and just be the solid rock of Gibraltar that every defense needs in the middle. And he has been that guy since 2018 in New Orleans. Now, what I really admire, love, respect, everything about Demario Davis is the fact I think he's one of the guys in any professional sports that we all watch on a daily basis is in the fishbowl, basically, that he is a better human being off the field than he is a football player on the field, and he's a damn good one on the field. He is a leader. I mean, we know he's a faith-based guy, a family man, a community leader, involved constantly. Um, I amaze how somebody can be that involved in everything going around them. It seemed like every day of the year. Said family, faith, community, then roll out and have to dedicate so much time to football and be great at that also. So to me, Demario is one of those guys that the Saints have had over the years that you can use in the same breath as Drew Brees, as Willie Roaf, as Ricky Jackson, of just that Hall of Fame player, but being able to do a lot more than that. And he brings it to a very, very high level. So I have nothing but the utmost respect for Demario Davis. That being said, on the football field, tons of respect there too. A leader, a legend, and a Hall of Famer. And this is really what the whole deal is about is the Saints have always had, since he showed up in 2018, a good linebacking core. And a lot of times one of the better linebacking cores in the NFL. But being anchored by somebody that good, as long as you don't put anybody who sucks, for lack of a better word, next to him, you're gonna have a good unit out there. What the Saints have done really well though is make sure they have a good um, a, a good complement to him on the field. No matter whether they were using 2 or 3 linebackers on the field, put a pin in that. We're going to come back to it kind of towards the end of this. And seemed like when he had a average average linebacker on paper next to him, well, all of a sudden that guy turned into a good linebacker. Good linebacker turned into a very, very good linebacker, and so on. So his leadership, and the reason why I have so much respect for him off the field, and I felt really need to talk about that, is he, without a doubt, he's one of those people that doesn't have to work at leadership. Doesn't, and he may, but I have a feeling he doesn't need to read books on leadership it's inherently natural to him that he is the guy with the charisma, the ability, the go forward. We're going to accomplish this attitude that just people naturally want to follow and get behind. Breeze, um, comes to mind. He was like that. Way back in the day, with those of us that remember the Dome Patrol, Ricky Jackson was like that. So I'm I am betting he can take the football players we're about ready to talk about and lead them in a direction because, like I said, I feel like he's been doing it all along. No matter who was next to him, there was never. I mean, I can't really think of any time since 2018 where we went into any type of game and I would have said, "Man, I'm really worried about our linebackers being exploited in this game or getting taken advantage of because we're playing a good offense that runs the ball or can throw intermediate or whatever the case may be." I don't think I've ever thought that once. The other possessions at various times, because of circumstances, the roster, and injuries, walked into the dome sweating bullets, going, "Man, how are we going to keep them from scoring 30 when they get to being able to throw at our backup corners because we're down 2 starters or not getting an edge rush because nobody's healthy?" That sort of thing. Never felt like that with the linebacking core. And it helps that your rock just doesn't get hurt and ever miss games. Knock on wood. I hope that continues for 2024. So we're going to start off with the guy that's been right next to Demario for the last 3 years, in Pete Werner, who rolled in his rookie year. And I mean, there's no other way to say it. 2021, he flat out balled. He was a really, really good linebacker. Um, and a really good compliment to Demario, like we talked about earlier, where the Saints could just keep finding the guy to put next to him. But Pete had a fantastic year. It's kind of a little unfortunate that he started out with such a bang because I'm guilty of having said this at times too. In the next 2 years, while he didn't necessarily have a bad season in 2022 or 2023, everybody say hi to Fergus, the Saints kid. He's finding his sleep spot on the blanket. But he didn't have bad years I don't think any standard. Anybody was looking at him and going, "Ah, man, we got to get him off the field." At times, I may have felt that, but in reality, my brother-in-law has checked me on that a couple of times, going, "No, in reality, look, man, that we there's a lot of starting linebackers in the NFL that really we would be saying, hey, we need to get him off the field." So I think that comes to what the talk a little bit this offseason about Pete Werner was, well, we're not liking his progression, or he may be in a bit of regression. And by this, I mean people covering the team. I don't think I've ever heard this from anywhere in the organization, officially coming out of the organization. And I may have felt like that, but just kind of, again, this offseason, the offseason typically gives me a little chance to step back and kind of look at it from above overall. Going, no, man, he's still a good football player. He just, for whatever reason, hasn't quite got up to that sensational rookie year he had, and that happens in the NFL. But we know he is a great run defender, especially, and I think this is really what he's really, really good at. It's moving downhill to attack running lanes. In between the tackles, he's sensational because I mean, we can all think of plays he had where he's shooting in there and plugging a hole, stopping a running back short, or even getting in the backfield and getting a TFL. He's very good at that. But also on the side to side, he's real good at being able to attack there if you run to him on a towards the sideline, that he can attack at angles and again shut down running plays on the outside. So it tells you he does have some athletic ability. Um, but I think in the last 2 years, what we kind of saw, this is where I feel like where I would get annoyed with him, but I don't think it's fair that I did, because now that I've spent a whole offseason, this offseason, trying to understand the concept of getting playmakers in space, like so many offenses are attempting to do, um, he's a guy that's where I think a little bit of trouble can come in. One of the things they talk about, his kind of missed tackles went up because I mean he was off the charts his rookie year. He just didn't miss them. They kind of went up, but if you look overall again, his missed tackle percentage for 3 years is right around 9%. He's basically missing less than one every 10 attempts at a tackle. That's not bad at all. It's just it was around 4% his rookie year. So I think we sometimes get caught in perception when it comes to Pete a little bit, and just keep forgetting how good of a football player and a good of a linebacker he he is. And that rookie year he can be really, really good. That could come back around again. And I'm gonna jump to Willie Gay before I tie up why I think Pete might be getting a bad rap. Because we signed Willie Gay, who I was excited about, because in the preseason, looking around and going, yeah, we need to add some help at linebacker, bring in some competition. We definitely need depth. I don't think anybody would argue with that, because when we didn't have Demario or Pete on the field the last couple of years, then you get worried about the linebacking core being a liability and getting caught in something. So he's in the challenge for a starting job where he can play every snap, because he's made that well known. He's coming out of 4 years at Kansas City, had a couple of years with some injury issues, but for the most part, very good linebacker there. He's involved in some Super Bowl runs there and playoff. Look, he's been in the fire and he's battle tested, and he has his strength in coverage, being able to rush the passer. Good sideline to sideline run defender. You don't hear a whole lot about him. Um, and I don't want to knock it like somebody like I'm suggesting he's not good in the running game, but you don't kind of hear that same thing where you can hear about Pete Werner about getting downhill and really attacking running lanes and running backs in the holes and in the backfield. Not saying that he can do it, just kind of comparing. I think that may be the one thing that clearly Werner's better at, stronger. Um, but he was also kind of a part-time player for the most part in Kansas City. And again, not reading too much into that as a bad thing. So Kansas City is one of those NFL teams that developing trend, and I hate to keep putting pin and stuff, but we're going to put a pin in this too for a minute. But this trend of less and less 3-down linebackers, you're seeing less and less of them on the field. And this is why I want to tie these two together. I think one of the reasons is because of these zone running schemes, West Coast schemes, all this stuff offensively that is just rapidly evolving the last few years. That boils down to, once again, getting the ball in space to your playmakers and letting them go play. So I think one of the challenges of NFL defenses is sometimes getting caught with, in the case of Pete, he's not his strongest, I don't think, when you have him already playing in space and having to deal with one of those playmakers getting in there with the ball, whether it's a well-designed run and play or a quick throw or something. Because as a linebacker, that's really stuff that's really going to affect him in those scenarios. And so you think he's just playing slow and not reacting. But I've kind of had to take a step back to realize, well, no, that's just he's a linebacker and that's a wide receiver or running back type. And the offense did a good job of getting that guy in an area with space and making it real difficult for Pete Werner to deal with. But that seems to be something Willie Gay excels at, because more than likely he's just a little more. Well, I don't think more than likely. I think it's pretty much established. It's a lot more athletic guy than Werner is. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because quite honestly, if Werner's tackle rate is still that good, like if he can get around there anyway, he's just not missing tackles. That's been a problem for the Saints defense. But again, our linebackers, I don't think was really part of that problem. It was coming from other positions. If need be, I can see where they may be the two pieces that complement each other um, in having to split snaps. I don't think that would make either one of them very happy at all. I get it, but there's been other linebackers around the league, and Willie Gay had to deal with that 4 years in Kansas City. But I also think Willie Gay is coming from a place going, I got a couple Super Bowl rings with some really good defenses, because that's the way they styled the defense to try to stop some of these crazy speed freak offenses that just gets guys that are hard to deal with in space with the ball. So we're also going to talk about what I think are the two primary backups, the fourth and fifth linebackers going in the training camp. And as long as they take care of their business in training camp, and one of the other names we're just going to run through real quick of the next five doesn't steal a job from them, I think we know who the top five linebackers are. One is Khaleke Hudson. Was assigned as a free agent from Washington before the draft. He was a former fifth rounder, played college ball in Michigan. Washington, that slow trend to making the roster and got cut. He also got brought back. He was on the practice squad, but eventually became a special teamer. He became a backup linebacker for them, and sneaking some starts in here or there in his career, ending in 2023, where he started, I think it was the last 4 or 5 games of the season, because at that point, Washington had decided they were going to blow everything up. They were going to fire everybody. They were getting rid of players. They had traded a bunch of them away. So he kind of finds himself on the field and acquitted himself with a nice little season last year, finishing 44 solos, 33 assists, had a sack, which when I looked it up actually came when he was in the backup role early in the season. Some tackle for losses, some pass defended. So statistically speaking, without actually looking at any film or anything else, but he contributed something. So you're probably looking at a guy that I think he's pretty solidly on this roster, because we know he can help in special teams, and he can likely come in a backup role and produce something. We haven't seen that a lot with the Saints the last few years outside their two starters. Then we drafted Jaylan Ford, who I think is going to fit a lot of what we just said about Hudson. It's amazing how we kind of keep getting some of these linebackers tied together. But fifth round pick from Texas, just played middle linebacker. He was a good run defender there, and had just a reputation as being a real high energy, athletic player that didn't quit at all when he was on the field. And everybody acknowledges that's going to help in special teams also. The only real knock about him that I remember pre-draft was he doesn't on film show a lot of coverage ability. In fact, they kind of used him as a pass rusher, almost like that was a knock on him. But I also heard a lot of Texas coaches counteract that in the media saying, not we used him that way not because he couldn't cover. We used him that way because we found out he was one of our better pass rushers coming um, from the second tier. So in passing situations, we decided, hey, we want to get another really good pass rusher up there, use him, and not worry about using him in coverage as much, giving that responsibility to somebody else. Then in training camp, we'll find out one way or the other, which is, how that plays out. Outside of those two, like I said, I think they're on the roster unless one of these guys can come take the job. But in Demarcus Jackson, Anthony Orji, Monty Rice, Nefi Sewell, Isaiah Stalbert. Stalbert's an undrafted free agent who's actually been making a little noise in training camp, and I think he might have a shot at sneaking a spot on the roster for special teams ability, if nothing else. Kind of talking about him being a possible hybrid linebacker safety type guy, which would also help his case. The other four, just they've been around the NFL a little while in various stages. Jackson and Sewell has been with the Saints before, so you got some depth. You got some experience there, and I think they're just mostly a just in case scenario, and they will likely, depending on how many linebackers we're going to keep, maybe they have a shot at making the roster, or if they can clear waivers, if they don't, winding up on the practice squad. So I think your top five that we talked about are the top five. Obviously, Demario, but Gay, Werner, Hudson, and Ford, and then any available spots after that. These guys are fighting for it. And I think also have to mention a couple other things about how the linebackers, how many we're gonna keep on the roster, how many we plan on using. Um, there's two little subjects that go with this. One of them is recognizing the trend around the NFL that three down linebackers are becoming more and more a thing of the past. You rarely see like the Saints have done the last two years with two guys that are basically on the field all three downs. Most teams will have one guy, and then they just kind of mix and match, almost like committee with some other spots using various. There is a new term of a two down linebacker now in the NFL. The guy you leave out there, but until it becomes an obvious passing situation, you're pulling him off for something else. It's to the point some teams actually use linebackers by committee. I'm not even joking on this, where they're rotating everybody and they have to put the green dot. And for those of y'all that don't know, that's the one player on both sides of the ball that has the communication to the sidelines. Well, quarterback always has the green dot on offense. Majority of the time, it's the middle linebacker on defense, except some of these teams now don't have their middle linebacker, that guy on the field enough to put the green dot on him, and it winds up on a safety. Other thing that we need to talk about, back in February in Dennis Allen's interview with the NFL Network, there was a question basically aimed at the new offensive staff and how they were integrating into the front office and making decisions. And they kind of got on this subject where DA talked about we were all in the room with Loomis and Ireland and everyone, and the discussion was that the Saints organization needed to get back to what they did when he was first brought back by Sean to be the defensive coordinator, bringing in the players, targeting and bringing in the players that fit what they want to do. And I think a lot of what went on in the linebacker room this year may fit into that, because one of the things DA used to use a lot, we haven't seen as much lately, was that I'll call it a multiple look, where technically it was three defensive linemen and three linebackers on the field, but that third linebacker spot was kind of a hybrid Sam linebacker / defensive end, where sometimes we'd show four, he's up on the line. And 2017, around that time, we'd run that with Cam Jordan actually kicking from the edge to the inside. We'd run that out. We're showing a four-man front. We may stay in the four-man. That linebacker may drop back. And we're actually going to play a three-man odd front. There was a lot of different multiple things he did um, having that flexible linebacker. AJ Klein was the first one that I ever remember seeing that done, and he played it pretty effectively. Used Caden Ellis at times, Zach Bond in the last few years. Kind of started not being so much effective. I think we were seeing it less and less. I tell you what, Willie Gay could do that role. There's no doubt. And he could do it very, very well because all the things that they were using that role for, he's built to do, and he did it in Kansas City. Rush the passer, give you some coverage, play sideline to sideline, make tackles, that sort of thing. So who plays what and gets snap counts may decide if we see more and more of that coming out, in which case Warner holds down and locks down his normal spot. Gay's getting snaps here and getting snaps in the other spot, or any other situational things we may want to do where on a particular third down we're still only going with two linebackers, but Gay may be in there instead of Warner. All of a sudden you're getting a lot of playing time for these three guys. So I think really what we're talking about here is the first time since we've had Demario Davis on the roster having a real chance at a complete linebacker room. Um, Giving him a quality player, and actually two we know that can play next to him. Situationally, depending on what DA wants to scheme up, they could both be playing next to him, more or less. Having some potential real depth in Hudson and Ford behind him with some extreme potential, especially Stalbert of that last five. That's the name that I think they may try to do something with. But now he has a room to mold. He's had a Saints career of really elevating play of guys around him, especially that linebacker next to him. And I think now he can take a whole new level with guys that the Saints are going to want to develop. Ford comes to mind. You never know how Hudson turns out in the long run. Not to mention anybody else lurking around back there that gets to get in. Gay is only on a 1-year deal, but there's possibility he can come back. Gay and Werner may be the future, and this is the chance for a Hall of Famer to teach him and lead him and show him. And a whole lot of guys in that room with potential, some with the talent we know, but some potential talent also that can just pull it all together. So if I'm excited to see what a leader and a legend like Demario Davis now has to kind of, along with the coaching staff, have to work in that room at linebacker. Really haven't seen it since 2018 at the potential level as we're seeing in 2024. So if you agree with me on that one, definitely that we got a Hall of Famer with some talent around him at a level that he hasn't experienced since he's been with the Saints. You agree with that with me? Make sure you bang that thumbs up, because that's how I'm seeing it. Potentially, this room could challenge the cornerback room as the best on the defense. It's going to be a hard ask and a hard task to pull off. But when you're looking at all the other rooms, that's the only one I think that really has a chance. But they also have Demario Davis. So there you go. Tell me what you think. Drop them in the comments. Please go ahead and hit notifications so you know when we're dropping stuff. And if you're new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. I'm Tim. Till next time, peace out and hoot at.